Hello and welcome to the podcast. I am your host Donna. Join me as we deep dive into real and raw conversations about love, life, money and business. Hey guys, it's Donna and welcome to episode 3 of the podcast, What is Your Emotional Age? So first of all, I want to start off by saying we actually have 3 different ages. So we have our physical age. So my physical age is 31 years old. We have our mental age. So that's our IQ. That's how smart we are. That's how skilled we are. And then we have our emotional age. Now, why I'm sharing this with you guys is because for a lot of leaders, they're actually leading from a space of their emotionally capped age. So I'm going to go into a few examples of this so that you can get a better understanding. So I remember once actually, I was training this girl when I was working back in the corporate space. And she'd come in and she was doing some work experience and she was, the response to a lot of things, she's a very quiet, timid girl. The response to a lot of things was, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And there was the internal voice that went off in my head like, well, what on earth do you know? But of course, couldn't say that, had to be very patient. And one of the things that I recognized is that when this typically happens, because I had already been doing coaching at that stage, I was coaching part-time and working part-time at that point in time. And what I'd noticed is that when somebody replies with, I don't know a lot, or they kind of sit back and they're too scared to give it a go, one of the things that I know is that she would have had her parents come in and save her a lot. So what she's learned is that if I say I don't know, then somebody comes in, swoops in and saves me. So I very, very specifically didn't save her. I said to her, okay, cool, I want you to give it a go. I don't care if you stuff it up, that's okay. We're just going to give it a go. It's not going out to the client or anything like that, but I want you to give it a go. And this really, really tested her because nobody had made her push through that before. Yeah, so her emotional age was probably that of, for example, a 5-year-old. You don't actually know this until you coach on it. Again, I'm not going to go into exactly how to heal this because it's quite a big topic. What I am going to do is bring it to your cognitive awareness, because when you have the cognitive understanding of this and you understand what this means for you, then you'll start to see it in either your behavior or other people's behavior. And when you can see that, the next step to that is, being able to go and see somebody about healing this. But for today, we're just going to focus on the cognitive awareness of what this actually means. So I wasn't going to let her out of this. And by not letting her out of this, this really stops her from being able to feed into that emotional age of always coming back with I don't know, which then when she does go and do it and she practices it and she puts herself in a position where she has to do this thing, it starts to empower her. It starts to show her that she can trust herself to go and do these things. Now, another example of this is, and again, guys, I say this for leaders in business and leadership, but it all applies to your home life too. There's no separation between the two. All of this behavioral stuff that I share with you guys, it applies to both. So think about somebody in your life who flies off the handle, goes to anger quite quickly, is quite volcanic about things. Their emotional age might be one that is capped at like a 2 or a 3-year-old. And the reason why we can say that is because if you look at a 2 or a 3-year-old, when they get angry about something, they flop themselves on the floor, they kick their legs, screaming in the middle of the shopping center. That's their version of, being angry, because they don't have the ability to filter that yet. They don't have the ability to self-soothe themselves yet. So they flop themselves on the ground and they get really, really angry, right? So as adults, our version of that, if we have a capped emotional age of like 5 years old or something, or 3 years old, what that will be is it'll be quite a volcanic, quite a curt, quite a short response where it's probably not really warranted. And the reason for that is because we haven't learned how to have healthy anger. We haven't learned how to express and get rid of that energy out of our body. We also haven't learned how to express that need in that moment. So we haven't expressed the boundary of this is not okay by me, or I deserve better, because that's really what anger is about. Anger is about boundaries. And it's about deserving, because you only feel angry when you felt like in that moment you deserved better, right? Most people don't know this, and so they go into that volcanic anger. They go into that childhood anger that was never really healed, never really allowed. And the reason for this is because typically somebody has come in and either said, no, anger's not allowed, or sadness is not allowed, or swooped in, like I shared with that example before, and they've saved that person from ever having to figure out things for themselves, and this is, I think, what parents do is they want a better childhood than what they had growing up. So naturally, our instinct is to go, well, I want better for my child, so I'm going to swoop in if I can. But sometimes swooping in results in this I don't know stuff, which means that as an adult, it means they can't function when it comes to, having a job or having a relationship. For this girl, I can quite easily say that if she's doing the I don't knows in her job, she's probably attracting relationships where she goes, I don't know, what do you think? We can go wherever you want to go for dinner, and so because she'd be doing that, she'd be attracting a lot of toxic relationships because, people who are very I don't know and don't have an opinion about something tend to attract the people who do and who are quite controlling and go, well, if you're not going to give an answer, I'll tell you what we're going to do, kind of thing. So it's not actually doing the best thing by your child to allow them to go and have that behavior, the I don't know behavior, and swoop in and save them. It's the same thing when it comes to, anger, so anger for society for the most part is not accepted. We try, if a child's, sitting there and they're cracking it and, they're having a tantrum, our instinct as adults is to go, no, that's not okay. What we don't actually do is we don't take a step back and go, well, hang on a second. They don't have the ability to self-soothe yet. And this goes for crying as well. They don't have the ability to self-soothe yet. So they don't know what is and isn't acceptable. And so we go in with the no, shush, it's not a big deal, you're being a baby, stop crying, whatever it is. And that caps that emotional age in that moment. It stops them from knowing that that feeling and that expression is okay, So it's really, really important that we understand this, because when we can understand this about ourselves, we can start to see what maybe our emotional age is or what the emotional age is of others. So I know I have a family member that I can think of right now that I look at and I go, when you go to anger, you go to a very, very, like I'd say about 3 years old, you go to the very childlike version of anger. I've certainly met people before who go to sadness quite quickly. So if you look at a child, they don't get their own way, they go instantly to tears, and that could be like a 1-year-old. And I know I've definitely worked with people before where they go to tears very, very quickly, right? So when you notice this, it's not your job to feed into this. It's not your job. It's your job to notice it in yourself. And when you notice it in others, it's your job not to feed into that. Much the same as the example that I gave you before with the girl who said, I don't know. Don't feed into their stuff, because it's not for you to take on, and it's something that almost they need to go and learn for themselves, and they need to figure that out for themselves. And sometimes you'll be able to, as I did in that example, sometimes you will be able to go and help that person and say to them, hey, why don't you give it a go? It's all good. You're in a safe environment. And then sometimes, like I said, with that family member, for example, who hits anger quite quickly, it's not necessarily my job as the family member to do anything or say anything or mention any of this. And so because of that, I'll just sit back and I'll watch it all play out. And the ability that actually gives me is when this family member does hit anger quite quickly, it gives me the ability to have compassion, because I go, okay, you're just playing out the emotional age. How would you speak to a child, who is 3 years old and experiencing anger right now? And then that's how I approach it, is, through the filter of calming that inner child down, because that's basically what it is. So guys, I trust that this has been helpful. If you did enjoy this and you'd like to hear more, please hit the subscribe button. Also, you'll see my VA pop below the links to my socials. Jump on the socials. I'd love to get to know you more and really, engage with you. So yeah, I'll see you on the next episode. Bye for now.